there's just more moisture in the atmosphere that can be squeezed out over our heads. Jay's got a comment that I want to touch on. Jay says the flooding stuff mostly happened in South Charlotte. Again, this was Tuesday. He's in Northwest Charlotte, but earlier the flash flood warning was issued for all of Meck County, and it went through the WEA, the Wireless Emergency Alert System, on my phone yesterday. So this was the conversation that was playing out in National Weather Service chat at about 10 a.m. So I got in the car. We had an advisory out for the county, and they said they were closely monitoring all of the flood gauges. So I said, let me go drive along the creeks on my way to work. And as I got to the Little Sugar Creek, in chat, the Weather Service said, stand by, we're about to issue a flash flood warning. And I started putting pictures in from where I was. And then when the warning came out, it was considerable. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. So we're going to activate the WEAs. Ironically, I didn't get the WEA. And I was like, I'm literally standing at the creek. I don't know if my phone was just too wet. I don't know. But I was like, I couldn't be any more geolocated on the flood if I wanted to be.
I've seen that with the WEAs, there are occasions where I've had several separate devices in the same house get it and some not get it. So I don't know whether that's, being connected through Wi-Fi as opposed to being connected through, the cellular networks or what's going on there. But it is interesting when that happens. Or then I'll have a device that will get multiples and the other device not get them. And at the same time, the weather radio goes off, which is always comforting to know that, hey, the chain is working some way, form, or fashion.
Yeah. This is why we always say to have multiple ways to get warnings.
Exactly.
No matter what your system that you're using is, there's a potential for something to go wrong with it. And that's, I think, especially true for the WEA system, because first you have the Weather Service issuing the warnings. Something could go wrong at the Weather Service office, a communications problem. Something could go wrong in the national system that sends that to out to the wherever it goes. I'm not sure how the system works, but then you have the cell phone system. They get this. They have to send the message to the tower so it can get to your phone. The tower could go down. Right. Something could go wrong there. Then there could be something wrong with your phone. Maybe you don't have it configured properly.
Maybe you're standing in the rain and getting absolutely soaking wet.
Maybe your phone needs to be restarted. Right. And it's glitching. Who knows? So there's so many places where things could go wrong with WEA. That's why you need another option. And things that could go wrong with that. Suppose you have a weather radio, the batteries could go dead.
Yeah, it's so true.
Or maybe you have it plugged into the wall and the power fails. Yep. So this is why you need more than one way.
Or a transmitter goes out.
Transmitter goes out.
Yeah, or you've got your P1 and P2 stations in a certain market. They're in the same building, or the LP1 and LP2 is. We have that situation out here. That is not a good situation at all.
The purpose of redundancy.
Exactly.
Yep. Here is a look at the flash flood warnings that prompted wireless emergency alerts in the Carolinas in the last 48 hours. So you can see Mecklenburg County, as Jay pointed out. And then we had 2 today in the greater Raleigh area. I put this web link in chat for anybody that wants to go check it out. It's warn.pbs.org. Yes. PBS plays a role in WEA, which plays into current events, boys and girls.
Yes, it does.
The primary is the wireless carriers, and I couldn't begin to explain to you exactly how that works, but PBS is part of the infrastructure, and we do know from our conversation with PBS North Carolina that their infrastructure, their statewide transmitters, are the backup system here in North Carolina. I do have an update from PBS North Carolina that I'll circle back to later, but I did want to put this on the screen because I thought Jay and some others might want to go. And there's a treasure trove of archive data in here.
There's a emergency manager out of Michigan, Rob Dale, who will go back through and look at these WEA messages and actually send tweets or Facebook posts to the agencies that send them to tell them, what's good and what's, and what's not so good. He just does this. And it's very fascinating. It's very interesting to see how the WEA system is used.
I'm looking at it here. I've never seen it used for boil water, but they're using that in California for boil water. We're going to talk, Jared, I want to talk to you later in the show about the fires burning in California. I had an emergency manager text me yesterday asking, What my experience with the WEA was, it's not a local person in Mecklenburg County, just somebody who's trying to get it like a little understanding of like, hey, I know you were there because like I could see that you were there. So like, what did it look like on your phone? I can actually show what it looked like on my phone. I screenshot it for anybody who's never received one. They sound like Amber Alerts, as I think most of you guys probably know. Where's my screen?
They do not make a noise that sounds like WEA, although they
Yeah.
should. No, it sounds like
There it is.
it sounds like the emergency
Yeah,
broadcast
the old
system.
EB. Yeah, it's the old EBS tone. Yeah.
It is.
Mhm.
The question that I got asked by a friend in emergency management, again, not local to this particular warning, was, what did it look like on your phone? Did it give you actually like any information? And I was like, now that you mention it, no, not really. I mean, like, it alerted me that I was in a flood warning until 4:15, and it was 10:30 in the morning. But it didn't really tell me like where or why or how, and all that information was in the full flash flood warning. So it would have been nice if there was like a view more button, but at the very least, it would tell me to go to the TV or radio or whatever my other source was.
Now I will say that I think that there are extensions being worked on to that, because I've seen evidence of like in newer iOS versions, for example. I know that you're on
I am on
Android. I'm sure that Android is working on this too, where they're working on adding ways to add additional context to those messages. They recently expanded the character limit on that just a few years ago. It used to be very short a few years ago. It used to just say flash flood warning in this area, check local media. That's all they had room to say. And so that's actually an improvement on what they can do. So they're constantly evolving this system again, in conjunction with the wireless carriers, and every carrier is going to do things their way. They're going to do it a little bit differently. So that may explain some of the incongruencies that you guys see with I remember when the national test was conducted a few years ago, and this before COVID. So we were all sitting in an office just waiting for all of our phones to lose their minds. And
some of us still do that.
Yeah, and one went off, and then another, and the way this works too is that it retransmits the message for however long the warning is out. So if your phone comes into that area, you will get the WEA. That's the idea.
So
anyway.
It's fascinating. I should clarify, because earlier in the show I said I didn't get the warning. Well, what ended up happening to me was I got to work. I got to a portion of our building that doesn't have cellular coverage. Yes, that still exists in 2025. And when I came back out of that corner of the building and reconnected to the network, it came through.
Mm-hmm. Which is the weirdest thing. I mean, and think about this. Your average traditional cell phone tower has a range of 5 miles. Now, of course, we've got all these 5G boosters. You should see those things popping up like mushrooms out here on telephone poles. That's a whole other thing, but with the 5G antennas. But yeah, it's the range of 5 miles, and here that 5 miles, you're talking about bodies of water that it's going over. So that can create some issues with it, because you will bounce off so you may be going across a bridge and you will bounce off one tower and then another in that little short span. And if you get a WEA, you might get a WEA here. You might get multiple WEAs in one little, like I said, driving across a Wright Memorial Bridge, 3.5 miles, and you're going to bounce off 3 different cell phone towers within that little span.
That could lead someone into turning off.
Exactly. That was where I was going with that, is that fact that you can get multiples at once, and then it's like, well, I don't want to get this anymore, and they turn it off. So it has its disadvantages. One of the disadvantages I'll throw in there, and maybe it shouldn't be classified as a disadvantage, but at least when you get an Amber Alert, and an Amber Alert does not have the geographic information in it, just like we noted you put up there with the flash flood warning. It doesn't say anything specific. If a Amber Alert is issued in Murphy, you're getting it in Manio. Because it's a statewide alert. It is not a geo-targeted alert. It is a statewide alert because of the way it's issued. So that causes all kinds of things. But then it's kind of crazy out here. We've got variable message signs now the DOT's erected. And those Amber Alerts will be up there and we'll say it, but it doesn't say the fact that this is something that could be 300 or 400 miles away. Not that we haven't had an Amber Alert that ended up with a vehicle that ended up, or something that ended up here or came from here, that type of thing has happened. But that is one of the other things about the system, that it's not perfect. It's nice to have, and one of the several ways we could have about it, or say one of the several ways to be informed, It's nice having it, but it does have its flaws.
I have a beef with the system, specifically with Amber Alerts, because like you said earlier, the trailing message tends to be check local media. Well, when it's
Well,
weather, local media tends to know what's happening and already has something posted or
right.
broadcasting. For an
Yeah.
Amber Alert, we're learning about it at the same time you're
Same time.
learning about it. So when
Exactly.
it says check local media, we're going, how
Yeah.
fast can I get this on Google? Like,
Right.
so
Yeah. Yeah. And how fast is it getting on to the states? As DPS in North Carolina, NCDPS is the
Right.
one who puts those out. How fast is that getting uploaded? It seems to actually correspond. They put it up and it kind of goes at the same time. So
It does. Yeah. So then it's just a race.